Today's exit interview is with Mike Welter. Mike retired just this spring, and Mike was a big influence in me in my career at Story. He'd been here 27 years. I've been here a little over 20 most recently, so really the entire time I've been here, Mike has been here. He is a real people person, and you'll hear that, I'm confident, throughout the course of this exit interview. Also, Mike is a shadow of himself. Since his retirement, he's really gotten into his fitness, and he just looks tremendous. He looks like he's riding off into the sunset, feeling great, and ready for his next adventure. So without any further ado, Mike Welter. Well, Mike, welcome back. Welcome back to the office. It's been a while since you've been here. So when did you retire?
Retired February 7th, 2020, right before COVID hit. I missed out on all the fun, I guess, of what you guys have been going through since then.
It's been a barrel of monkeys is what it's been. So February 7th?
Yep.
Okay. So why did you, what prompted your retirement? What made you say, you know what, it's time?
I had some health issues, and I got over those, and my dad needed me a little bit more than I was able to give with a full-time job. So I've been able to get over to Dubuque and help him more often than I've been able to, and it was just it was time for a new adventure, I guess.
Sure.
Natalie had been retired for several years, but she was too young to retire. I call it quitting her job.
That's it.
And so she'd been waiting patiently, and so it was time. And our big plan was to do some traveling, which has been tamped down a little bit here, obviously. But once that can resume, we've got several trips planned that around the United States and maybe other places as well.
Cool. So you mentioned your dad, and he's in Dubuque. So tell me about growing up. Where'd you grow up, and tell me about your family growing up.
Yeah. Dubuque, Iowa. I'm one of 7 kids. The oldest boy. I have 2 older sisters, 2 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters. Good Catholic family. My dad owned a corner grocery store when I was growing up, and so everybody, that was my first job. Was sorting pop bottles and mopping floors at the grocery store. My mom worked nights at the billing department of the Dubuque Packing Company. So older kids had to watch the younger kids, because Dad would go back to the store to lock up and not get home until 9:30 at night. So we had to kind of herd the younger kids, get them to bed, et cetera. So it was good time growing up. Lots of neighbor kids, pickup ball games. There wasn't the play dates and that sort of thing. You just wandered around the neighborhood and found enough people to play baseball or
Sure.
football or whatever activities that were of interest to us.
So public school or Catholic school?
Catholic school.
Okay.
Yep, Sacred Heart School in Dubuque, and we all went there. It was tuition was then it was real money, but first kid was $50, second kid was $30. After 3 kids, they got to go free, and so we had the discount, the volume discount, I guess, if you will.
Perfect. So in high school, baseball, softball, play an instrument, what'd you do?
No, I didn't do a lot of extracurricular activities. Actually, my dad by then had sold the store and bought an ice cream shop, Bressler's 33 Flavors, in the Kennedy Mall, the mall there in Dubuque. And then he got called back to work at John Deere, and so. After school, I'd always go over and help run the store. So didn't really have time for the extracurricular activities.
Sure.
So it's helping the family business, so to speak.
So you get from Dubuque to Ames to go to Iowa State. So What was that like? What was the decision to come to Ames and go to Iowa State?
Growing up, I was always intrigued with science and math. My imagination was enhanced with the Apollo project, the moon landing and all that. I had all the models. I had the see-through internal combustion engine model that, I don't know if people remember those. So I was always wanting to know how things worked. And in high school, I took all kinds of shop classes, wood shop, auto mechanics, drafting, electricity. And senior year, my counselor called me into the office, and Mrs. Jane Reed, and I owe her a lot. She says, you got, high grades. Do you plan on going to college? And I said, well, yeah, I think so. And she says, well, you got to do more than take shop classes. So she loaded me up with physics and math and those kinds of things to help get me ready for it. And she goes, what do you want to do? I go, well, I want to be an engineer, but I don't know what kind. So she gave me some books to read. I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk, but I wanted to be an engineer. And as I read about construction engineering, I saw that maybe that was a good fit for me. And so, of course, Iowa State has one of the best construction engineering programs in the country. And so I signed up to go there and started in that fall and went to college there.
So the fall of what year?
Fall of 70. I graduated in 77, so okay. Fall of 77.
So when you came here, where'd you live and how'd you get plugged into Iowa State?
Yeah, I lived in the dorms, Linden Hall, Fulmer House. Actually, a former Story employee was a college roommate of mine, Martin Milley. So I got to know him then. And I'm still in touch with about a dozen of the guys I grew up with on that floor. Cool. And so really good group of guys. And I would say, lived the full college experience. I won't
pre-social media and pre-COVID, right?
Right.
Thank God it was pre-social media?
Pre-cell phones, that's for sure. I'll be remiss if I didn't say that the highlight was that I did meet my wife there. We met, we dated. We got married when I was still in college. I had a year of college left to go, and I tell everybody I needed someone to pay my last year of college. And of course, then Natalie would chime in and say, yeah, and you've been paying for it ever since.
So where and how did you meet her?
I met her at the Cave-In. It was it
was like a public library sort of thing?
Yeah, it was a study hall area on Lincoln Way, or on Welch Avenue. And with some friends, it was a Thursday night, and we needed a break from studying. I'm sure I was studying very hard, and she was there, and she knew some mutual friends, and so we ended up at the same table and just kind of hit it off. So the rest is history, they say. 40 years later, we're going to have our 40th anniversary here in November.
Oh, be darned. So where was she from?
She grew up in Marshalltown, Iowa. Most of her, she moved there. She was actually born in California. Her dad was a electrical engineer working on the at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and then he got the call. He wanted to be a Episcopal priest, and so he went back to Berkeley, went back to school, and so that, and then they had their first parish out in Pasadena, Altadena, and so she was born out there, and then they moved to Sheraton, and then when she was in like third grade, they moved to Marshalltown, where she grew up, basically. Okay.
All right, so that takes us to Iowa State and maybe through Iowa State. So you're getting ready to graduate. What were job prospects like, and where did you land, and how did that all look?
Yeah, times were a little tough. I graduated in the fall of '81, and so I was interviewing, and they limited you to 3 interviews a week. And by then, actually, Natalie was, we just found out Natalie was pregnant. And so I was motivated to graduate and to find a job. So I'd do 3 interviews a week, and I ended up with 3 offers. One was for a sprinkler company in downtown Chicago. That wasn't too much of interest to me. One was for a scheduling engineer for a Bechtel company in San Francisco, and the prospect of sitting behind a computer screen, 9 hours a day didn't really appeal to me. And the other one was a general contractor in the San Joaquin Valley, Central Valley of California, and Cahuilla Construction. And so I accepted that offer. $21,500 was my starting salary back then, and that was real money. And for a kid who lived in Pamel Court and paid $70 a month rent, that was real money. Sure. So we moved out there, lock, stock, and barrel, and then started a career out there.
Yeah. So how long did you work at that company, and what kind of roles and projects did you play in?
We were out there for 12 years. And it was mostly wastewater, water treatment plants, low-head hydroelectric projects, communication towers, more heavy stuff out there, and all throughout California. So rather than being away from my family during the week, we opted to move the family to where the project was. And so we'd have like 12 to 18 month stints at each place. And that company put their project manager on site. And so we had one job, and then we would bid the next job while we were finishing up that one to go on. And sometimes there was overlap, and it became a little hectic, but we found a way to make it work.
So who were some of the real influential people then early in your career and at that company that you looked to and really admired and helped shape your career?
I would say there were 3 people. One was Don Brown. Him and Ed Jackson hired me. Don was my supervisor, so to speak, and it was really awful. He was killed in a plane crash. Our company plane went down. I was there about 4 or 5 years, and a company plane, small plane, crashed on takeoff from the Sacramento airport. He was in it. Our CFO was in it, and a computer analyst was in it, and plus the pilot. And that was a real dark day for the company. We lost a lot of our leadership in that accident. So we all had to grow up fast, and lost to Don was tremendous. And another guy, Scott Richards, he was kind of a senior project manager, and he kind of moved into Don's role as division manager. And he was about 5 or 6 years older than me, and I really looked up to him, and he taught me a lot about estimating and about managing work. And then during this transition too, with replacing Don, we needed a high-powered project manager to finish the largest power plant project that we had ever done, the Rio Bravo hydroelectric project down in Bakersfield. And so we brought in Doug Baker. It was his last, he had been retired. He was in his 70s. It was one of his last projects before he officially retired. And it was one of my, obviously, first big projects. And so, but with his age, I mean, his heyday was building the big hydroelectric projects in the West, Flaming Gorge Dam, Glenheim Gilboa Dam. These were big dam projects. And so the stories he had and the way he approached people, I mean, one day I saw him, he was having a 20-minute conversation with the guy that was pumping out the Kaibo. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, you never piss off somebody who cleans your toilet. And he would donate books in the name of several of our African American laborers who lived in Bakersfield to the library about African American history. He was just a good guy, and I learned early to connect with people, and he taught me that lesson.
Sounds like great guys. So you're in California, and you think, you know what, I'd like to be in Iowa. Or maybe you didn't, maybe Natalie did, but how did your family then transition from California to Iowa, and what prompted that?
Yeah, we, all our family lived back here, and we missed being near family and having the kids see their grandparents, a little foreshadowing there, but so we started to kind of have an eye on moving back to the Midwest, and so one trip, vacation, we had driven out to back to Iowa to visit family, and I took that opportunity to interview with a couple of local companies. One of them was Story. I called ahead. They told me they weren't interviewing, or they weren't looking for anybody. I go, I know, I just want to put a name with a face, and could I stop by and introduce myself? So I had an interview with Norm Reese. This was in summer of 93. Of course, they were just reeling from the flooding here. There was a little bit of a chaos situation, but I interviewed with Norm for about a half hour, and I figured that was it. But then he brought in Dick Johnson to meet me, and we talked for a little while. And then I thought that was done, and then Brad Heemstra came in, who was their senior project manager at the time. And I talked to him a little bit, and then Larry Dix, who was head of estimating, he came in after that. So I figured maybe they needed a break, or I just had made a connection with somebody, and of course they left saying, well, they weren't hiring, and I said, okay, fine, and good luck. So I drove back. We drove back to California, and a couple of days later, I was mowing the grass, and my son, Josh, he's in 5th grade, comes running out. He goes, some guy named Norm is on the phone for you. And so I went in, and Norm had extended an offer to me. And so in the course of a month, we put the house up for sale, packed up, turned around, and headed back to Iowa in a U-Haul and a car and a trailer, and everything we owned was on the highway at that time.
So the Iowa Clampetts came home.
That's right. That's right.
So what was your first day then? Do you remember your anniversary date? What was the first day?
September 7th, I believe. It was 1993. They kept it open because of the holiday, and because I was traveling back, I had to find an apartment, and to get unloaded and all that. But yeah, I started that day, and a little bit of orientation, not much. And then they said, well, we want you to start, be the project manager on the Johnston High School project. It was a new project, or an addition to the high school, and it was a new gymnasium, a new cafeteria and kitchen, and then a fine arts wing. The superintendent was Bill Mayer, who they called Dollar Bill, because he was a little tight with the dollar. Him and I kind of led that project and got it built. And it's kind of an interesting side story. And this is, I guess, a point to make. Always build like you're going to build for yourself, because 10 years later, my son Josh graduated from UNI and was a high school English teacher. And his first job was at Johnston High School. And he was his classroom was the very classroom that I built, and so I'm glad I did a good job on it, because it kind of is neat to see the building get used by somebody you know.
Oh, absolutely. So you started in 93 and you retired in 20. Yep. So 27 years.
Yep.
So what are some projects in that time that you participated in that are particularly memorable to you?
The UNI wellness recreation center. Big project. It was going to touch a lot of people, and it had a little bit of everything. It had some good steel construction. It had precast. It had some unique foundation systems, the pilings, and it was connected to near the Unidome, which was always going to be occupied, and some classrooms around it. So we had a lot of coordination to do, and Jim Sodders was the superintendent on that, and we needed some help. So I hired a young engineer to help us with some paperwork and out in the field, and then he stayed with us after he graduated, and that was Brian Hessig. I take a lot of pride in having brought Brian into the Story fold.
And were you on site for that job, or in the office, or splitting?
No, I was full-time on that site. I would go up there Monday morning, and I'd get home on Wednesday night late just to kind of check in with the family, and then I'd head back up for the rest of the week, and then come home. If we didn't work Saturday, I'd come home Friday night. Yeah, it was a big enough job. It needed a manager presence on site, which is what I was used to anyway.
Sure. So you maybe talk a little bit about then your progression through the company. So you were a project manager, and I think one of your hallmarks is you help to relate to a lot of people and grow a lot of people up. So what did that look like from your eyes in your career?
Yeah, most of the people I developed were just by working with them on projects. Valerie, Adam Papish, and then I had helped when I could develop some superintendents. I guess my trademark would be I did a lot of the interviewing and helped hire project engineers, and then worked with them to hone their skills and give them advice on how to plug into a project and be helpful. And so that never ended. I'd like to think I did that throughout my career here, and always tried to help the managers when I could, to be a resource, maybe because of my tenure here. Maybe it was just where to get the resources or advice if I had seen something similar on a job that I did earlier in my career.
Sure.
One other project I guess I want to touch on was Kinnick Stadium press box. We had the bid package for the concrete and the steel erection for that. And the first meeting I went to was there were 8 of us in the meeting, and 6 of us were Iowa State engineering graduates. And so I knew right there that if this building was going to get built right, it would have to be done by Iowa State engineers, not University of Iowa engineers. And so I made that point every time I could when I was building.
I'm sure you did. Well, so a similar question to the Kauea question related to people that helped to shape sort of your thinking here in your career at Story and Iowa. Who are some of those names and some of those memories that you look to as having been impactful?
One outside and 2 inside, I would say. One outside influence for me was Bob Werson. Bob was a owner of Interpower Corporation. I did about 10 or 12 jobs for him over the course of my career here at Story. He just was a class act, well-thought individual. He would just call us up and say, "This is what I need," and no interview process, just I pick Story, let's get it done. It usually was design build work, and we just had to define the scope and get it built for him. The way he ran his business is how I think Story ran their business. They were transparent in the information that they share. He shared with his company and with the people outside the company. He would be kind of an open book, and he would connect, just like Doug Baker, he would connect with anybody and find a way to relate to them. And so he was how to approach life, so to speak. It was a big influence on me. Internally, I guess there were two people that I would look at. Jimmy Rogers, and I only got to work on one job with him, but he was always an influence throughout the company, and he was just so technically expert in everything. He would have a thought process. I am going to try to imitate him, but it's not going to work out very well. He would say, the idea came to me very slowly, sort of like when you turn on your defroster and the windshield slowly clears up, and then you can see clearly. And that's part of his thought process.
Sure.
But
I can see him saying that.
Yeah, he technically there's nobody better. He just would think a problem, sleep it until he found a solution, and we tapped into that a lot on other projects that he wasn't even involved with. Another one is Jim Sodders. These are both longtime story guys, but I did a lot of projects with Jim. And I learned, similar to Doug Baker and Bob Werson, he had a way with people. When he was a superintendent, he could relate to an owner, to a designer, to the subcontractors. He'd get the most out of the subcontractors. They would want to do him favors. He would convince a designer that his way might be better than what's shown on the drawings, and here's why, and they believed him. And then the owners just had a comfort level with him that they would, it would be okay, and he had their back, and he would rally the team together to move forward and get the project done. And the way he related to people was extraordinary.
Yep, and still is. They'll both be guests on Exit Interview in the coming weeks. You were involved beyond just story, I know, in the community, in the industry, some of those things. So what did you plug into in your time while working?
Yeah. Natalie and I always believed in giving back to the community that we lived in. She was always on some sort of education board or committee or something, and me to a lesser extent. But I guess the two big time commitments that I've had in my time here in Ames was I spent 10 years on the St. Thomas Building Committee, helping them with their facilities. And recently I finished a 8-year commitment with the Greater Iowa Credit Union Board of Directors that I was on. And so those were the two big time commitments, I would say, in the community.
So as a retiree, have you found that your calendar's freed up and you have a lot of free time, or are you as busy as you've ever been?
Well, the virus has made it look different. Instead of traveling that we had planned and seeing the grandkids, that's more planned, so to speak. We do see them, and we keep isolated. They keep isolated so we can spend some time together. We just had them for a week. Both families stayed with us for a week at our house, and that was fun. We've instead of traveling, we do day trips. Natalie and I, we have explored Iowa and do biking and hiking and kayak, kind of one-day trips. And our days are full, but we're flexible. Sure. We can move it around depending on the weather. And then, of course, I have been doing a lot of home projects, things that have been slipping over the years since.
Getting tightened up?
Yeah,
not
been
slipping.
able to get some of that stuff done.
Well, you've referenced your family several times, so tell us about your kids, your grandkids. Where are they, and what are they doing?
Yeah. Josh, my oldest, is 38. And he and his wife, Anna, live up in St. Paul. He is a middle school English teacher. Anna is working on her PhD at the University of Minnesota in education, also a teacher. They have 3 kids. Sol is 8, going on 9, going into the third grade. Lena is 5 and going to get ready to start kindergarten. And Freya is almost 3. And they keep that household busy, let me tell you. And then Nick, my other son, he's a couple years younger than Josh. Him and his wife, Leslie, live in West Des Moines. Leslie is a teacher also. And yeah, you can't swing a dead cat in our family without hitting a teacher. Nick, though, is a project manager for Henning Companies. And they have 2 kids. Jackson is going into 3rd grade also. He's 8, going on. He'll be 9 in September. Keelan is 6 and going into 1st grade. And so they keep us busy. We do a lot of FaceTiming with them, et cetera.
Sure. Well, and I know you live in Story City, so you split the difference some with proximity. So you're not next door to either of them, but not far away from anybody.
Yeah, 3 hours door to door to Josh in St. Paul and about 45 minutes to West Des Moines. So yeah, it's when I was working, it was you could do anything on a weekend and get close enough. But and now it's time isn't a factor. It's whenever. Same way with visiting my dad. We go during the middle of the week, which helps because my other siblings don't have that option. A lot of them are still working, and so they visit on weekends, and so that we spread out the visits a little bit.
Sure. So we'll start to land the plane here. This gets to be part of the conversation that says, man, so you've worked a full career, you've had a lot of experiences, you've helped shape a lot of careers. And many will listen to this podcast that maybe don't know you and never got to experience Mike Welter. So what pearls of wisdom would you have out there for young people, or really for anybody in the company and in the industry to be successful, to benefit from your experiences? What would you tell folks?
I would say if you have the opportunity for a field assignment, take it. The magic, the excitement in this industry is in the field. It happens in the field. When you're retired, you don't think about that complicated submittal that you worked on and turned in. You talk about that 2-crane pick that you did, or that middle of the night shutdown that you did, and working with the guys in the mud and the blood and guts to try to get something done. That's where the excitement is. That's where you gain the most experience in the fastest way. And I guess the other thing would be always listen to your team in the field, whether it's a craftsman or a foreman or an operator or a superintendent. They have firsthand knowledge of the problem, and if you have a construction challenge, they probably already either have it figured out or have some ideas on how to approach it, and that's invaluable. And whatever success I've had in my career, it's because I listened to my team in the field. The superintendent is hands down the most important person on the team. They touch the most diverse group of people, from the craftsmen to the owners, the designers, and they have a unique perspective on whatever challenge is out there. And so you need to listen to them. You need to have them be part of the solution. Otherwise, you'll have a uphill battle trying to solve any challenge that you have.
Sure. All right. It's open mic now. Anything else to share? Any other memories or stories that are worth passing down or important to pass down through this format?
Well, a lot of the stories, it's a two-way street, so I don't want other stories to get out. So I'm not going to do some of the individual stories. But I will say I really appreciate the opportunity that Story afforded me. I was in California. We did very specific types of projects, but when I working with Story, I was able to broaden the opportunity for other projects. So, from treatment plants to manufacturing facilities and warehouses and offices and banks. And you'll laugh at me, Mike, because you've heard me complain a lot, but churches, I did about a dozen churches, and I always complained about how hard they were and how disorganized they were. But you got a group of people who don't know sometimes what they want. They don't know the process or how to get there, and they don't have the money to build it. You would think that's...
Other than that, it's easy.
Yeah, that's the great target audience to shoot for, right? But they need you. I mean, that's the bottom line. And and you need a special superintendent that has the patience and the ability to fill in the blanks, because usually the drawings aren't complete. Guys like Tom Clausen or Jim Voss, they were just expert in those types of projects. But, as hard as it was and as disorganized as it was, as much as I complained about them, and when they were done and you were sitting there at either dedication or in your home church that you helped build, and you look around and you watch people worship in the building that you helped build, there's a great deal of satisfaction in that, and you're proud of your accomplishments, and it's just a great feeling to be a part of that.
Amen. Amen to that.
Amen.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for coming in.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. I look forward to the other retirees that they have a great insight for the young people as they grow in their own careers.
So there you have it, folks. You heard from Mike Welter and what his journey into retirement is looking like, and the stories that he shared to get from here to there. He is, and his really legacy within the company is about being very relatable and connecting with a lot of people. His impact is really felt through people, whether it's people internally to the company, people in the industry, or people in the projects that were involved that he served. So he was a great teammate at Story and a great teacher at Story, and we wish him all the best in his future.